Hey guys, today we're going to introduce you to the Minn Kota Ultrex QUEST. We're going to go through the contents of the box, and then I'm going to show you how to install this trolling motor step by step. So we just finished unboxing all these parts and pieces and laid them out on the floor just to kind of give a demonstration of what's going on inside of this box. So we obviously have the trolling motor itself. We have the mono arm. We have two different styles of props that come with it. One is a power prop to give you the maximum thrust of this motor. The other one is similar to the old version of the weedless wedge, which is pretty much 100% weedless. We have a couple different sonar adapter cables. We have a Mega Live shaft adapter. We have an Ethernet iLink cord. We got some mounting hardware and also an Ethernet adapter dongle to hook to a Helix Hummingbird sonar. We have the bounce buster. Then we also have three different owner's manuals in here. The micro remote quick reference guide, quick start guide, which is for the Minn Kota app. And then we have the installation instructions. What's not included in the box is a circuit breaker. Every trolling motor should have some sort of circuit protection to it. Minn Kota offers this MKR27 that's gone through rigorous testing. I strongly recommend this circuit breaker when installing this particular motor. So the tools needed to install the Ultrex QUEST are listed on page 6 of your installation manual. We'll just go through them real quickly. A number 2 Phillips screwdriver, a number 3 Phillips screwdriver, a number 4 Phillips screwdriver, a 1/4 inch Allen wrench, a drill, 21/64 drill bit, a 7/16 box end wrench, a torque wrench, a person to help with installation, file or sandpaper, a hacksaw, a marker or pencil, 1/8 flat blade screwdriver, a rule or measuring tool, 9/16 open end wrench, a 9/16 deep well socket, and a 5/64 Allen wrench. We're going to start the installation process first by taking the mono arm, and we're going to set it up on the bow of the deck. This is where you need a helper or another person to help you out with. So what I'm going to do is we're going to have our helper, and he's going to just hold down on the back side of this mono arm. We're going to remove these Allen screws right here, where the steering housing is going to attach to the mono arm. And we're going to slide the steering housing. You'll see there's some lugs here, and that steering housing is going to fit right over the top of the end of the mono arm. Make sure all your cords are out of the way so you don't pinch anything. Just slide it down easy, and then we're going to reattach the Allen screws that we took out a little bit earlier. The new QUEST has 2 Allen screws on, so make sure you get them both in there snug. So with our Allen head tightened, I'm going to stow this and actually fold it up like it would be stowed on the boat. The reason I like to do that is 2 reasons. Number 1, our mounting holes are accessible for us to mark with the magic marker. Number 2 is I want the head of this trolling motor inside the gunnel of this boat just to prevent any accidental collisions with the dock post, just to keep it inside. And then I take the front of the trolling motor, or the bow guard, I take the motor ramp and I make sure that's hanging over about 4 inches on the upside of the boat and about 8 inches on the backside of the boat. Now I'm going to go ahead and mark through the mounting holes on the mono arm onto the top of the boat so I know where to drill our holes. There are 6 holes pre-drilled. We're going to mark all 6 of those, and then we're going to move the motor off of that, locate our marks, and then go ahead and drill our holes in there. So we got a 5/16 inch drill bit chucked into this drill. The owner's manual says 21/64, which is close enough to 5/16. So we're going to go ahead and locate our marks and drill this boat out. So in the hardware pack, you'll find a lanyard for the remote control, the prop, drive pin, washer, and nut. We're going to set that aside for later. Ethernet adapter dongle for a Hummingbird Helix, a tie-down strap, and the fasteners. So before we put any fasteners down through here, I like to take the tie-down strap and I put that on first, just so I don't forget it. And then also, it's very easy to put the Velcro on backwards. I like to have this hem on the strap itself about 2 inches away from the side plate of the motor. Also, we want that between the first set of holes closest into the boat and the second set. So we'll just kind of get that situated. I'll make sure that's tight so it doesn't slide on me. And then lift the motor over our holes. And then in that hardware pack, we have our fasteners, along with some fender washers and our nylocks. Another important thing to mention in the hardware pack is a small tube of anti-seize. Very important to make sure you put anti-seize on the threads of this fastener. The other thing I like to do is preload the nylocks with some anti-seize. The anti-seize will prevent the nylocks from called gulling on the stainless steel fasteners when you're tightening it down, and it also makes removal a lot easier if you ever have to take this motor off the boat. This boat owner had the original Minn Kota Ultrex on it, and with that anti-seize on those fasteners, it made it a lot easier to pull that motor off of this boat. So we'll set that aside for now. We have our holes drilled, and I like to take a screwdriver and pull the motor into place and poke the screwdriver through the mounting hole on this base to find the holes we drilled in the boat. So I got one right there, and I'll just take another screwdriver and find the other hole. So now I know our motor mount is lined up with the holes that we drilled. I'll just take one screwdriver out, take one of our fasteners, drop it in the hole, and just get it started. So once I have the fasteners poked through, and right now I just have two of them, I'll take our nylocks and our fender washer, and I'll reach underneath the bow deck here and just start the threads onto the fastener. Okay, I'm just finger tightening them right now. Those two are started. Now we're going to move off to the next four. I'm going to slide this motor down just a little bit so the mounting holes in the base plate are free and clear, and then I'm not fighting the lower unit of this motor. Then you'll also notice, just to help things out a little bit, I just stuck a drill underneath the top part of this arm here just to keep the motor mount level to the bow of the boat. So our holes are accessible now. I'm going to just confirm with my screwdriver. I got one there. Start a fastener. Another one's right there. Now we're going to get a preloaded nylock and washer. Finger tight only for right now. Just make sure you got a good solid base plate here, and if it isn't, you might need to get some sort of support underneath it. So with that, we're going to go ahead and tighten up all our fasteners, and we'll be ready for the next step. So I'm just holding the nylocks with a 1/2-inch box end wrench, and once my impact maxes out, I'll go ahead and give it another 1/4 to 1/2 turn just to make sure everything's good and snug. So now that we have the trolling motor fully secured to the boat, our next step is going to be to attach the lift assist springs to this mono arm, and with that, it's a good idea to have a helper. So what we're going to do is deploy it. And we want this mono arm probably perpendicular, almost perpendicular with the boat. So we could come up just a hair right there, Will, and we'll hold it right there. Earlier, when we were disassembling or getting ready this mono arm for installation, there was a hardware pack that was fastened to the head of this with that Allen screw. And that is 4 Phillips. And what we'll do with those is we're gonna align the base of the lift assist spring with these holes and start one of these Phillips screws in there. But before we do that, there's a protective cardboard tube in here we have to remove. And then just a little tip here, don't use an impact and line your screw up and get after it. Either use your finger or just a screwdriver, a hand screwdriver, just to start it, just so you don't cross thread anything. And there's nylocks on the back of this, so it will be a little harder to tighten. So I got my bottom 2 hand tightened with the screwdriver. I'm going to line up the top two. And again, using a screwdriver, just get them snugged up. And then what I'll do after I have everything with a hand screwdriver, I'll just take my impact and give them a couple clicks just to make sure everything gets good and tight. So lift, assist, spring, complete. We're gonna go ahead and stow it back down. All right, guys, so the next step in the installation process is we're gonna go ahead and mount the bounce buster or the BoM Mount stabilizing arm. Take it out of the package, obviously, and take the mounting hardware portion off the threaded end. You'll notice there's two nylocks on the back of this. We won't be using them in this particular installation, so we'll take those off and set them aside. Two options to mount this, either inside of the boat or outside of the boat. And it's all personal preference. Sometimes there might be a door that's in the way if you put it on the inside. The outside, there might be, might be hitting the bow, something like that. Like this is kind of splitting the bow and the deck. So we're gonna go ahead and mount this on the inside of the boat. So we're gonna take the fasteners, we're gonna take our anti-seize, we're gonna put our lock washers back onto the fasteners, take our anti-seize, put a bit of it on the end of the fastener, and go ahead and start them in the two holes that are already threaded to accept the mounting portion of the BoM Mount stabilizing arm. We'll get them hand tight and then we'll take our Allen wrench and finish them off. So the next step is to take the actual arm itself, and it would go in like this with the threads on top, obviously, to go into this mounting bracket here. But to get it to the right height, we're gonna flip it upside down. Take a magic marker or some sort of marking device and mark about 3/4 of an inch above the top of the bracket that we just fastened up. So we're gonna put a mark there and then we're gonna go ahead and cut that to length. So in the owner's manual, it mentions about a hacksaw, and the reason what that's for is to cut the arm off at the mark you just made. So ideally, what you'd wanna do is put this in some sort of bench vise or have somebody hold it and go ahead and cut that mark. I happen to have a saw in the back room with a metal cutting blade on it, so that's what I use just because it's quicker and more efficient to me to do. So now that we got that cut, back in the instructions, it talks about a file, and the file is just simply to take the burrs off the edge of this pole when you're done cutting it, remove any sharp edges. So when we remove this from the packaging, there was two caps in there. One is a little bit more substantial or heavy duty. That's gonna go on the bottom part, the one we just cut off. You're gonna seat that down firmly onto the pole, and the top is just a rubber cap just to cover up the threads that are exposed once it comes through the mounting bracket. So we're gonna bottom this plastic nut out, slightly deploy the motor, and just simply thread this into place. Just hand tighten that and put the lighter duty cap on top. And that completes the installation of the stabilizing arm. You will notice that when that is in place, the motor does not bounce at all. So when you're going over rough water, it just protects all the inner workings of the mono arm. So next step, now we're gonna install the prop, and this particular owner fishes a lot of shallow water, grassy, weedy water targeting bass, so we're gonna put the weedless wedge prop on here. So we're gonna take our prop hardware bag. So in the prop hardware bag, we have our drive pin, we have just a flat washer, and our nylock to fasten the prop to the prop shaft that's sticking out of the motor here. So the drive pin is gonna go into the hole that's in this armature, and you're gonna center it so you have just about equal distances coming out of each side. You'll notice the back of the prop is slotted to accept that drive pin. And it'll kind of sit in place, you'll feel it, it's locked in there. And then when I just hand rotate the prop, I see the prop shaft also rotating, so I know that's all seated securely. We're gonna slide our washer on there, and you should have plenty of anti-seize left from earlier installations. We're gonna put some of that onto the threads. And here's the 9/16 prop nut. We're gonna get that finger tight. And then just take a deep well socket and finish it up. That concludes installation of the prop. So we're getting close to the conclusion of installing this trolling motor. We're going to go ahead and take off this covering and see what's underneath it. In this bag is going to be your micro remote. Along with the instruction manuals, we had this micro remote quick start guide, and that'll show you everything you need to know about the micro remote as far as functionality and also how to program it to your trolling motor. There's a couple cords sticking out of the front of this. There's one here with a cap on it. What that is your iLink cord. So in the packaging was a 30-foot iLink connector, and that simply would plug into this end, and then the other end is going to go to either a 5-port switch box you have in your boat or to a Humminbird Helix Apex or Humminbird Solix, and that gives you iLink compatibility between your Humminbird head unit and the trolling motor itself. We have another cord here. This is our sonar extension cord, and you'll notice this is a 14-pin end on it. So that's plug and play into any Solix or Apex trolling motor. Let's say you're running Helix. Well, also included in the packaging, we have 2 different adapters. The MKR MI, which is mega imaging, which would be side imaging, or the MKR MDI2. The MDI2 is going to be for Helix 7 units only. So that would plug 14-pin male to female, and then you have the 7-pin that's going to plug into the back of your Helix 7. If you have an 8 or bigger, then you're going to use this cord, the MKR MI1, male to female, 14-pin, and then your 7-pin into the back of your Helix. Minn Kota's done a great job of giving you all the accessories. You might not use all of them, but at least you got them and you're not purchasing separate items to get your system complete. So without getting into the very specifics of the sonar networking and the iLink networking compatibility with this trolling motor, we're just going to conclude the installation of this trolling motor by applying power to it. Every Minn Kota trolling motor out of the box has 2 ring tongue terminals. This boat, however, has a trolling motor receptacle. Trolling motor plugs are boat specific, not trolling motor specific, and you want to make sure you have one that's heavy duty enough for the amperage that this trolling motor is going to demand. Minn Kota offers a very robust plug called the MKR28, which would take care of our power needs here in this boat, but because we already have a receptacle in this boat, we're going to reuse the plug from the motor we took off earlier to power up this motor. So because of cable management, you got a lot going on up here. We don't need all the cord that's supplied with this particular trolling motor, so I'm going to set the foot pedal in the footwell this particular angler never takes it out of there, and just roughly guess what I need here, string out the cord over the deck of the boat, and I'm gonna cut this cord off right about here. That way we got a couple feet here that we don't have to hide underneath this bow plate. All right, so I'm just gonna strip off a little bit of this insulation. And this particular plug has these inserts or sleeves that go over the wire themselves to keep it spreading out when you tighten the set screw down. So we'll put that over our strands. Back of the plug has 3 receptacles. And I just took this off the motor we took off earlier in the boat, and I know number 1 is negative and number 2 is 36 positive. So I'll just match that up. I like to tighten the outer set screw first because I found that if you tighten the inner one on this particular plug, sometimes the wire tends to squirt out. So by doing the outer one, that'll prevent that. Finish tightening up the negative end here. And we'll slide our plug cover back over the top of everything. Screw it together and it's done. So with the plug installed, the next thing is to make sure we got power. And we do. And that concludes the installation of our Minn Kota Ultrex QUEST.